This is Contra Zoom,
where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Rachel Ho.
A few weeks ago, for my birthday episode, I named my favorite film from every decade as a way for listeners to get to know me more and my taste. Now it's my co-host's birthday week, and I want to know a bit more about her. There have been two previous installments of Better Know Contributor, one with Stephanie Pryor, who designed the artwork for the show, and one with Sammy Felchenfeld, our resident comic book movie geek. Before we get into the grilling portion of the show, how are you doing, Rachel?
I'm good, thank you. I really enjoyed that episode too. Your favorite with Bill. I thought there's a lot of movies there that I haven't seen, so you guys gave me some great recommendations.
So just for curiosity's sake, who had a better list?
Oh, I think I would say yours are more movies that I was like, I've heard of them and I want to see them, and they've just been like on a to-do list. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas
No, I
Bill's
understand.
list, some of them I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. But I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to go watch it because it just sounds amazing. And he actually does some really cool Criterion breakdowns on that shelf. So yeah, he's got like deep knowledge of film.
No, he's awesome. We were messaging each other back and forth afterwards, and I said that his picks were too bougie, and he thanked me for the compliment.
It is a compliment in a way, because it's like, I mean, this is not to slag off your choices either, but it's like, you know, your choices, it's like things that I have heard about, you know, like things
Jaws.
that I don't think it's going to be people being like, what is All the President's Men? Like, what is that? I've never even heard of that. Or it's more of probably, oh yeah, like I've always been meaning to watch that. I heard it's good. Whereas Bill's were just like, I gotta rewind it and get a piece of paper and write that down and Google it, because I have no idea what it is, but he's making it sound great. So yeah.
Well, I'd be totally curious.
Both good.
I'd be totally curious to hear what your picks are, but that would probably be for a different time. Maybe you could just tweet them at me or something.
Maybe. I was playing along as you guys went, and I was just like, wow, my picks are so like basic and just not at all inspired. I was like, in comparison. I thought it was funny when he commented that you didn't choose Star Wars, though. Like a straight man didn't choose Star Wars. I thought that was really funny.
I definitely felt a little out of my league too, which is fine, because like I don't want to like super pat myself on the back, but I feel like I have a pretty good knowledge of film and stuff like that. And there's some stuff you were saying, I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm so sorry. I have nothing to add here.
But that's why it's great to have like people like Bill on, because, you know, the more you know, is like the better we get. So yeah, I thought it was a great episode. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out.
Awesome. Yeah. Shameless plug right there.
Yeah.
But I want to know about some of your favorite movies. So I guess we'll start a little bit about your history on here. This is going to be 10 questions. The very first one is, how many episodes have you been on Contra Zoom Pod now?
I've been on 10. So you provided me with that number. Thank you. I didn't have to go back and count. But does this count as one? Like, is this?
No, this will be your 11th.
This will be my 11th. Okay. So yeah, I've been on 10 before this one, which is a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It like started out a little sporadic, but now it's been going strong, I feel like, for the last couple of months. Okay. So the second question, of those 10 shows that you've been on, do you have a favorite guest appearance or topic that we've covered?
I do. And it's going to be not because of the topic necessarily, but I'm going with the episode where we covered the Toronto Japanese Film Festival with Naomi Wada-Platt. I mean, it's obvious why I like that guest appearance the best. It's because Naomi and I got to do an episode together, and hopefully not our last one. But I really enjoyed her episodes with you on Japanese cinema. And so I was really, really excited to get to like chat with her and meet her in a way, like 21st century meeting somebody, like digitally meeting somebody over a podcast. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to her.
Nice. Well, I hope she listens to this then and can hear that. And she comes back on too.
For sure.
All right. So the third question, and I feel like maybe the most important one of all of them, what is your favorite movie of all time?
I hate this question. I'm just going to put that out there.
Answer it however you like.
It's such a tough question, because like, how do you answer what favorite means? Like, is it the one that you've seen the most? Because logically speaking, that's your favorite, right? Like if you've watched it a ton of times. Or is it the one that like meant the most to you, the one that you think is the best? I don't know. I've always hated this question because I can answer with like a million different movies. But I settled for two, which when I was saying how I would have like really basic choices, here are some basic choices. First one I'm going to go with is Speed.
There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
Now. Are you insured?
Yeah, why?
He's the only solution.
We just got a ransom demand from your terrorist. Says he's rigged the city bus. Where's Jack? Where do you think?
Because I just watched it again over the weekend and I absolutely love it. It's just one of those movies to me. I think it's like a perfect action movie. It's silly and it's very, very 90s. It's Keanu Reeves at his best. It's Sandra Bullock at her best, and Dennis Hopper as well, and Jeff Daniels. It's amazing. It's a great, great movie. My other option was also Casablanca, which is a bit maybe on the other end of the extreme there, but yeah, Casablanca is just a movie that means a lot to me. It's one that I think I first saw it when I was about 14 years old, and pretty much every single year I've watched it at least once since. And I go and watch it. Like if ever I hear there's a cool screening for it in any city that I'm in, I'll definitely go and take a look. It's one of my favorite movies. Makes me feel good. Yeah, and I like the history behind it too. Like I've read tons of books about it and read like the bios of actors because who were in it. I really enjoy it.
Well, I think those are both excellent picks, and I'm sort of the same way where if I get asked my favorite movie, I have 4 answers, and just like you, it's a bit of a spectrum. For every 12 Angry Men, that's my favorite. I also have Snatch, so we can be multifaceted people.
Sure, 12 Angry Men. That's a great show too. I haven't seen that in a while. That's a great movie. That's an excellent movie.
Well, thank you. So I've got a question then about Speed. Then I've never seen Speed 2. I have seen Speed, but what are your thoughts on Speed 2?
Funny enough, I'd never seen it until about 2 months ago. Oh. And I'd never watched it because I heard it was bad. And also Keanu Reeves wasn't in it. So I was kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, what's the point? And then I did watch it and yeah, it's crap. It's not good. I would like just ignore it. I act as if it doesn't exist and just Speed lives on its own. It's a great movie.
Even Sandy B?
I really like her. I think that she's got the most, people always said like Julia Roberts was kind of the all-American sweetheart, but I always thought that was more Sandra Bullock because she's very silly. Like she's got like a very silly sense of humor to her, and like she is that again, but it's just a bad movie. Like overall, there's just not very much like redemption about Speed 2, which is such a shame because Speed is truly like such a great movie. And it's not just like a great movie in terms of nostalgia for me anyways. Like I don't think it's just one that, I like it because I watched it when I was a kid and like I had the VHS of it and all that kind of stuff. Like it's not that. I genuinely think like it's a really well constructed movie. And Speed 2 just kind of betrays all of that. And for what? For what, 21st Century Fox? What was the point of that? I guess it would have been, yeah. Like what?
For the money.
Yeah, and then so fun fact about that though is they did want Keanu Reeves to be in it, but he had signed on to do, I believe it was Johnny Mnemonic, or it was either Johnny Mnemonic or it was to play Hamlet in Winnipeg. Like it was a very random thing, and he refused to do it. And Sandra Bullock tried really hard to get him to come back, and he just said no. And then, kind of as a result of that, he didn't work at Fox for at least 10 years, like maybe even more than that. Yeah, like they were really pissed off at him for that.
Well, you know what? Maybe you should have made a better movie.
It's true, and also it's not like what Keanu probably he came out the best because he could have done it for probably a massive paycheck for the time. And he didn't have Matrix at that time either. Like, it's not like he was rolling in Matrix money yet. So I think he could have done it. But my Keanu, he's got principles. My man's got principles. Like Johnny Mnemonic. I don't know. Johnny Mnemonic is just like, I don't know. Whatever.
All right. So moving on. What is a movie that you are embarrassed to say you've never seen before?
So this is a great question, unlike the favorite question, because when we all started this lockdown last year, like last summer or last spring, This was kind of partly one of the things that I was like, you know what, we have time now, so I'm going to fill in the blanks of movies that I haven't seen. And so that included a lot of Hitchcock movies for me. And actually one of I think the first episode that I did with you about Rebecca, that was one of like the last kind of Hitchcock movies I hadn't seen yet. So it was like really good timing for that. And I ended up filling in a lot of blanks. However, kind of the one that I thought that I still haven't seen it, and I don't know why I haven't seen it. It's not a Hitchcock movie. It's not from that era. It's Raging Bull. I haven't seen Raging Bull yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I
and
feel
you
like
want to, though?
I do. I really want to watch it. And I feel like it's like I really like Robert De Niro. Like I like Scorsese. Like it just feels like a movie that like a movie person should watch. I don't know. Have you seen Raging Bull?
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it.
And it's like a sports movie too, so I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I don't know why I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it sort of is a sports movie, but also not really. It's so much more about the it's more of a character piece than a sports movie, which is it's funny because you're interested in it because it's a sports movie, where I feel like most people look at it and be like, oh, it's a sports movie, I don't want to watch it. And I'm like, well, it's also not really a sports movie, but it does have some fantastic boxing sequences in it.
I mean, that just shows, though, they always say the best sports movies are never actually about sports, right? Like they're always about so much more than that. And like I think of like my favorite baseball movies, like Major League is, I mean, it's Major League, but like A League of Their Own, for example, that's not really, it is about baseball and it's about the women's league, but it's also about a lot of other things as well. So yeah, Raging Bull is probably the one. And I actually wanted to call you out on something that I noticed recently. You tagged me in an Instagram story about like crime films that you've seen and haven't seen, like a bingo card. You didn't check out Scarface.
No.
You've never seen Scarface. I saw that and I went, how has he not seen Scarface? And Donnie Brasco too. I saw that on there too.
Right. Yep.
But Scarface is more like, how have you not seen Scarface?
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because like, what was that bingo card? Like 20 spots of movies, and I feel like I circled like all but like 3 or 4 of them, and it's like pretty big ones. Scarface being the biggest one.
I'll say actually, Once Upon a Time in America is on there too, and that's a movie I've been meaning to watch for ages as well. Like that, I could probably include that as well because I think that's like everything I've ever heard and seen about that movie. It seems like something I'd really like. But Scarface, I don't understand how you haven't seen Scarface.
Yeah, but you know, as far as like Once Upon a Time in America goes, I was also sort of in that camp where I'm like, oh, I really want to watch it. And then the podcast Film Spotting did a review of it because neither of them had seen it and they were excited about it. And it ended, like it's almost a 4-hour movie, and they're like, this movie is kind of overwrought. There's a lot of stuff in here that does not need to be in here. There's some really good stuff, but a lot of it is just like a kind of a hot mess. And some of it hasn't aged very well either. So it's weird. Like, yeah, if you look online, there's some like very fervent supporters of this movie where like, this is the greatest movie ever made. And then there's also, I've also started to see more and more people popping up because after Sergio Leone died, people talking about his work. Obviously the music is fantastic, but I was just seeing a lot more of a like, Once Upon a Time in America isn't that good. Like it's almost like a bit of a reevaluation.
But do you think it's kind of like Citizen Kane, where I feel like it was considered to be, you know, the greatest film of all time kind of thing. And then after a while it's not that good. Like it's very overrated. People are just being whatever about it. But then it kind of looped back around where people were like, actually, no, it's not overrated. It's a very good movie. I mean, to say anything is the greatest movie of all time is kind of bull. Like, I don't think that you can label any movie as that. But I wonder if Once Upon a Time in America, maybe it'll happen that way too. It's like it's an up and then a down, and then maybe in a few years' time it'll go up again. And when I say a few years, I mean like a few decades. Yeah, like maybe a couple decades. It'll go back up again. But that's interesting though. Oh, it makes me want to watch it even more. Like the thing that's kind of held me off from watching it. Not that I have anything against long movies, but it's just like it's a commitment that I go, okay, I need like a 4-hour window to watch this movie. And every time, but I mean, I waste 4 hours. I waste more time doing nonsensical things. So, but it is just like that kind of, it feels a bit daunting to be like, I have to sit down for 4 hours and watch this movie.
Yeah. Because I feel like if you're at home and it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night or whatever, and you're like, oh, I have nothing going on right now, but I kind of want to watch a movie. It's super easy to throw on like a 90-minute movie and be like, yes, I can stay awake long enough that I'm not like screwing myself over for the next day if it's like a work night or something like that. Whereas a 4-hour movie, you're like, okay, I need to set out a block of time. I have to make sure I don't do anything after. I make sure if I need to pause it, bathroom breaks, food breaks or whatever, I could do that. And so it's going to end up being more like 5 hours.
It's true. Like
it's
true. And I could watch Speed like 3 times in that time. So,
right.
Like I could just watch Keanu jump a bus, subway, save people on an elevator. Why wouldn't I just do that? Clearly. But no, I think all those movies though, I feel like Raging Bull, Once Upon a Time in America, you need to watch Scarface. Like it's not like it's like the greatest film I've ever seen in my life, but it's just kind of a funny thing to miss off is Scarface. Do you want to watch it? Actually, I should ask that. Like, do you even want to watch Scarface?
I don't. It's tough because like I'm not action movies from like the 80s and 90s. I'm just really not into.
Yeah.
And like I've seen the ending of Scarface. Who hasn't seen the ending?
Yeah, that's true.
And that just kind of like seems like so over the top for me. I have a bit of curiosity of what the rest of it's going to be like, but it's just like, well, if I know how it ends and what it looks like at the end, then like, do I really need to watch it? I don't know. I know it's like it's like up there for like every film bro's favorite movie sort of thing. I feel like we're now past that. We're in the generation of like, it's The Dark Knight, but like the previous generation before that was like, it's all about Scarface.
That's very true. Yeah. Everyone had a Scarface poster in their dorm room.
Yeah.
Literally every guy that knew something about movies was like, I've got Scarface on my movie poster. Yeah. And you're just like, good for you. Good for you, bro. Good for you.
So I want to loop back around there just a little bit. You're talking about how during the pandemic you decided you want to catch up on a lot of movies you hadn't seen. Chief among them were like Hitchcock stuff. What other movies were on that list that you were wanting to check off that you were able to?
I went through a lot of kind of the golden era Hollywood movies because that's always been a time period, historically speaking, that's just fascinated me in terms of like the studio system and the Hays Code and all that. Like I've just been really interested in it, and I thought I haven't seen some of the biggest movies. So like the Maltese Falcon, for example, I hadn't seen that before. What else did I watch? I watched what's that? The Frank Zappa one, the lace, it's like lace and something.
Arsenic and Old Lace.
That one, thank you. I'm like, it's a lace is in there. Yeah, that one. I saw that one. Charade, which actually, I think Bill picked that as one of his. Would that have been the 30s, maybe?
He talked about it, but I don't think that ended up being one of his actual picks.
No, and then you said that you didn't care for it because you were like the humor. I think I agree with you more than I agree with Bill on that one. Like it didn't quite. I don't know. It didn't quite stick with me. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. I'd always heard of Charade too, and I was like, it's all right. It's not bad. But I watched like a bunch of Cary Grant movies, Katharine Hepburn movies. African Queen is that's a really great. That's great.
I was just curious.
Yeah, it was good. Like it was actually a really good time, and also I should add, I watched all of the Mission Impossible movies within 2 days during lockdown.
Whoa.
I just shotgun right through them, like right from the beginning.
So what's your favorite of that series then?
Oh, that's so difficult. Ghost Protocol is excellent.
Is that the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to Fallout is actually that's the most recent one. And I saw that in theaters, but that's actually a really, really great one too.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Henry Cavill before we got on here, but yeah, it's like he's in that one too. Yeah, I think they're all really good. The only one that I would say I didn't like was the second one, which is a shame because it's John Woo, and I usually I like a lot of his movies from like Hong Kong and Face Off and stuff like that. Replacement Killers. No, he didn't do Replacement Killers. That was Anton Fuqua. But yeah, I like John Woo a lot, but I did not care for his version of Mission Impossible.
Okay, all right.
Although you get Tom Cruise on rocks, cliff. What am I rock climbing? He's literally hanging off a cliff. Which, sure, do you, Tom? Do you? But yeah, that's what I did during lockdown.
Well, that's good. All right. So I guess moving on to the next question would be, what's your favorite director?
I went with Denis Villeneuve, and I didn't know if you meant living or just in general director. But I think either way, I think I still go with Denis because he's yet to make a bad movie. Like, I feel like most directors, I can at least point to one movie and go, yeah, it's all right. Like, but like all of Denis' movies, I'm like, they're all top shelf in my opinion. I don't think he's made a bad one yet. And I know you really like him as well. So, and I'm very excited for Dune. Incredibly excited for Dune.
Have you seen his French movies?
Yeah, I watched. Was it Incendie and then Polytechnique? Like like I actually think those are the ones that I don't want to say they're his best, but I think like they're very uniquely Denis. Like considering that it's very early on in his career, like they're like some of the first movies he did. But they're amazing. Polytechnique in particular because the story is so. I remember hearing about that story of the shooting in Quebec at that time, and yeah, and to see a movie about that, it was like that I found really. That's one that I love, but I haven't watched it since I saw it the first time.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen that one. Incendie is probably maybe first or second of my favorite of the ones that I've seen of his. But yeah, speaking of Dune, when that comes out, we're going to have tons of great Denis Villeneuve content. So make sure people stay tuned for that because I'm very excited to watch all of his movies. I haven't seen the ones that he had done before Incendie. So there's Polytechnique, there's Maelstrom, and August 32nd, I think it's called.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, Incendie I think is an incredible, like absolutely incredible movie too. But yeah, I'm really happy, and I'm so happy for him for like all of the successes that he's had in Hollywood. Like he wasn't, I mean, not to downplay Canadian directors or anything like that, but like sometimes Canadian directors can just be Canadian directors and they don't kind of go further, even though they're immensely talented. But it's really, really cool that he's gotten the level of success that he has and doesn't appear to be slowing down at all.
I absolutely agree. And I really hope he one day gets his own, either Best Director or Best Picture award. And that's going to lead into my next question. So yay for segues. What is your favorite Best Picture winner of all time?
So Casablanca won Best Picture. But I didn't want to say best like Casablanca because I already said that that's one of my favorite movies. So I went with my second favorite, which would be Deer Hunter. Which is very different to Casablanca. But I watched Deer Hunter at a very young age, and it was very inappropriate for me to watch it. But my parents didn't really have like an idea of like MPAA ratings. They didn't quite get it. And it was just on TV. And I like said, no, it wasn't on TV. Sorry. It was probably like VHS bootleg or something like that that my uncle gave us or something. And I remember watching it and just being like terrified of everything that was going on in that movie. But also like I couldn't leave. Like I couldn't just get up and go because I really wanted to know what happened. And then I didn't watch it again for a long time because it probably scarred me a little bit as like a child. And then I watched it again in my 20s and I thought, God, this is such a good movie. Like no wonder even as a child, like it hooked me and it took me. So yeah, I'm going to go Deer Hunter because I just think it's a brilliant movie.
That's a great one. And then I guess on the flip side of that, what is your least favorite Best Picture winner that you've seen?
I think this is probably like the most popular of the least favorite for Best Picture, but it's Shakespeare in Love.
Young Will Shakespeare is having a bad year. His last two shows flopped. The theater is about to go bankrupt.
Notice will be posted!
And the gangsters are moving in.
The show must go on.
The last thing he needs right now is a nasty case of writer's block.
What's it called? Romeo and Ethel, the pirate's daughter.
What is the story?
Well, there's this pirate.
Oh, okay.
Like, what the hell was that about? Why? And the thing is, it bothered me. I remember at the time when they won thinking that Saving Private Ryan was going to win. And looking back, like years later, I think most people, pretty much everybody can agree, Saving Private Ryan is a better movie than Shakespeare in Love. And many of the other movies that were nominated at the same in the same year, you could say are better than Shakespeare in Love. But then as everything came out about Harvey Weinstein in the last few years and the way that he basically like bullied people into voting for that movie, it makes me hate it that much more. Like as a movie, it's fine. It's like I have nothing against the movie itself, but yeah, I've always resented it for one, taking it away from Saving Private Ryan, and two, all the nonsense associated with Weinstein.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think the consensus pick, even back then, but still holds strong, is that Saving Private Ryan should have won. But then the hipster pick would be that Thin Red Line should have won, which in my opinion, I'd be down for that too, because I love that one.
Yeah, I think that's a great one too. Like I think you're right. Saving Private Ryan is probably more like the more populist like pick because it's Spielberg, it's Tom Hanks, the young Matt Damon.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's but it's a great movie. Thin Red Line's an excellent movie too. That's a really, really good movie too. And I haven't thought about that movie in a while. But what do you think of Shakespeare in Love?
I like it, but it's tough because it sort of exists in this, stratosphere where I don't think it's best picture quality. So in that case, yes, I think it's undeserving. But as far as comparing it to maybe even some of the other movies that have won best picture, I'm like, well, it's still a better movie than that one. So like, it sort of occupies this weird space where, I don't think it's a deserving winner, but it's still a fine enough movie. I really don't like Gwyneth Paltrow as an actor, as a person in general. and she really torpedoes that movie pretty hard. I actually quite like Ben Affleck in that movie.
Yeah, but she won that year too. And then I think that was the year Judi Dench won as well for her, like, was it? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 8 minutes. Yeah,
whatever on screen. I remember that being a really big deal at the time. But yeah, no, I Gwyneth, I don't know. I don't have too much. I'm very indifferent to her. I don't really, I don't really have any strong opinions about her one way or another, which might be even worse than having a strong opinion about her. But, I didn't think she deserved, I mean, whatever. Yeah, that movie in general is just kind of, it's a fine movie. Like I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's just looking. And I actually when I was like prepping for this, I saw that they did a survey like a few years ago and asking the Academy who voted at that time, being like, would you have still voted for Shakespeare in Love? And they were all like, oh no, like we would have done Saving Private Ryan. And
sure you would have.
Like my question was like, what a weird kind of survey to do to like Academy members. Like, hey guys, like, would you have done this again? Like, it's quite a loaded question in my opinion, but I don't think it's a very deserving winner. And I don't know, as a movie, it's fine. But what would you choose for this one?
There's a couple really bad early ones. Cimarron, which is a god awful Western that includes several instances of blackface. The Greatest Show on Earth. That's what it is.
Okay.
I was going to call it The Greatest Show on Earth. But yeah, The Greatest Show on Earth. It was basically like literally a commercial for Barnum and Bailey's Circus. And it's so bad that Jimmy Stewart, who plays a clown in this, refused to not be seen without his clown makeup on screen the whole movie. Because he was so embarrassed to be in this movie.
How did he get roped into it? Like a contract thing?
I don't know. I think it was just I think it was just a contract thing where he had to be in it, and so he's like, "Great, I'm going to play a clown, and you never see me without my makeup on."
Wow. And did he keep his billing? Or I guess like they would have had to. They would have forced his billing on there.
Yeah, it was a pretty small role, but yeah, he definitely is. He is mentioned in the credits prominently.
The reason
and then of course,
sorry, go ahead.
And then just also like recent ones of like Crash and Green Book as well, Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch that I don't like.
Crash is probably like that's up there as well, I think, for being one of the most kind of questionable decisions that they make, that the Academy has made for Best Picture. I feel like they're one that is a bit, it's odd. It's very odd. I remember seeing that and just thinking like, okay, like I was pretty young when it came out, but I was like, whatever. It's a fine movie. And then I heard it got nominated, and then I was just like, oh, maybe I'm missing something. That's usually what I think.
No, if you rewatch it, you'll realize you weren't missing anything. In fact, it's probably worse than you thought.
I'm not even going to bother wasting my time rewatching that.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next question. What was the last movie you either walked out on or, because it's a pandemic and we stream everything now, turned off?
I just said I wasn't going to rewatch that because I didn't want to waste my time. But for some reason, literally last week, I decided I'm going to rewatch the Matrix trilogy. And first Matrix, excellent. This was actually right after I watched Speed. I was like, I'm going to watch.
You want a
Matrix.
Keanu marathon?
I did. I had a little Keanu film festival just for myself. And I watched the first Matrix, love it. It's still a great movie. Like, and the action in it is incredible. Like, it's so good. And I kind of like that, watching that again made me be like, oh, man, I don't think I give this movie enough credit. Like, I'm not a huge Matrix person. I was like, I like it, but I'm not a massive fan of like a big fangirl of it. But then I went to Matrix Reloaded, and yeah, it's kind of, I don't even know. I was bored. Like, it's such a boring movie, which is such a shame. Like, I can't even, like, I don't even know how to fault it as a bad movie. I was just really bored. And at one point I was like, why am I watching? It was the point where they have like the really big orgy in like the
in the cave.
Yeah. And then
and
Neo and Trinity are like getting it on in a back room of the cave, because caves have back rooms. I don't know. And it was just one of those where I'm like, this is going on for a really long time. And that's weird. Like, why are we watching this for so long? And I'm not a prude about it, but I was just like, it felt weird. I was like, it didn't seem necessary. And then I think after something else happens and I go, I'm bored, I'm going to watch something else. I just turned it off. And then I didn't even go to the third one. So that ended my Keanu Film Festival.
Fair enough. I don't think I've seen the sequel since they came out in theaters. So yeah, I'm a little curious. Maybe going to revisit them when the fourth movie is coming out, but that does not give me hope.
No, it's partly why I watched it. I was going to watch it too, is I have a friend who's really into sci-fi, and he was defending the third one, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody defend the third one before. I think it was like a universally, we don't like this movie. Like, it's just not a good movie kind of thing. And he defended it, and it kind of intrigued me. And I thought, I'm going to go and watch all of them. And I told him I was going to do this. And then he was like, how'd it go? And I said, I couldn't watch the second one. So I'm not even going to bother with the third, which is a shame, because I do think the first Matrix is such a good movie.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So the next question is, what is an underrated movie more people need to see?
Okay, I also have two for this as well. One of them is called Villains, which I recently saw maybe a few months ago. It's on Amazon Prime in Canada, and it's Bill Skarsgård's in it, and I think he's the only like big. Oh no, Keira Sedgwick is in it as well, and it's a really good like micro budget thriller action. That's not a mystery, but like it's a really good kind of like capery kind of movie. There's no heist or anything like that, but it's about like two young people who are on the run. They're a couple, and they do petty robberies, and they end up pulling into a house thinking they're going to rob it, and then they find a girl chained up in the basement, and then the parents come home, and a lot of stuff happens. It is an excellent movie that I had never heard of, and it's a shame that I hadn't heard of it before, because like I would feel like a lot of people haven't heard it. It's such a good movie though. Have you seen it?
I've never even heard of it.
It's such a shame, because I feel like there's so many good indie movies that come out, and like we don't hear a word about them. And I think that's one of them. And that's one thing I will give credit to like streaming services for, is they give a nice platform, because I wouldn't have watched it otherwise. Like, I think it just kind of randomly popped up, and I saw Bill Skarsgård, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll watch it, whatever. Turns out, excellent movie.
All right, what's your second pick?
It's also on Amazon Prime, and it's also like a weird indie. It's called Coherence. This is one that a friend of mine saw it at a film festival or something, and years ago, and we were having a barbecue at his house, and he played it for a bunch of us. Like, he did the projection on the back of the house and stuff, and it was like a strange movie about like a comet. Like, there's a dinner party, and then a comet flies overhead, and it does this kind of weird astral plane nonsense. Like, it kind of changes things, and then all of a sudden there's multi dimensions, and it's an interesting, it was made for like nothing, basically. Like they just paid for maybe people to do camera work and stuff like that. And there wasn't any script. It was just, they came in and all the actors every day would get cue cards of this is what you're doing. And they weren't told what the other actors were doing or different plot points and things like that. And yeah, it's a fascinating movie that I'm not doing a very good job explaining because it's a tough movie to describe. But I would highly recommend that one. Like that's a movie that after I saw it, I think about it very often. And it's just this little tiny movie that again found a home on Amazon Prime. So yeah, go watch it. Amazon Prime Canada.
Interesting. Did strange things happen at the barbecue after you watched this movie?
You know what? I was like looking out for it because we were outside and I'm like looking around. And as I was driving home, I was like, oh my God, like this would be really weird. Because it is like, it's because I guess they improv a lot of it. It does have that feel of just like, what's going on? Like it feels very natural. And it's very well done. Very, very well done. Anybody who's into like science fiction, that's a great movie.
Okay. Yeah, another one I haven't heard of. All right, so we're down to our last question now, which is, what is an unnecessary hot take you have about a movie?
This one was a really tough one. I feel like this was the most difficult one of them all to answer. I was going to do like a hot take about Marvel and something to do with Infinity War, just because I don't really care for it that much and everybody seems to love it. But I'm going to go with Star Trek as an overall franchise is better than Star Wars, in my opinion.
Oh,
that's what I'm going to go with. And that's like a long, like decades old debate that Trekkies and Star Wars fans have all the time. And I wouldn't consider myself a Trekkie because I don't think I know enough about Star Trek to consider myself one, but I am a big fan of Next Generation. I like the new movies that came out. I like the Shatner movies. I don't really like his series though, like his the TV series that he did. And I really like Michelle Yeoh is who I love. She's been in what I like her too. So I personally think that Star Trek as just like a general, like if you take the TVs, the movies, and even like things like comics or like animated series, like things like that, if you put it all together against Star Wars, I personally think Star Trek is a better franchise that means more. Like it's more impactful than Star Wars. And I don't know if it's because Star Wars kind of tripped up in the prequel, the 3 prequel episodes beforehand that we saw when we were growing up. And then kind of lately they've been floundering a little bit too. So I don't know if it's just like maybe a bad taste that I have, but yeah, I would take Star Trek over Star Wars any day though.
Okay. Do you have a favorite Star Trek movie then?
I say Wrath of Khan. And I know that's probably
really Star Trek too. Okay.
It's like a very almost like a very obvious answer for what's the best Star Trek movie, but I think there's a reason it's obvious. It's because it is very good. And it's
mm-hmm.
What was the modern day one they did what was that one called? The second one with Benedict Cumberbatch he plays Khan.
Yeah. It's not Star Trek Beyond. Was that the third one?
The Beyond was the third one. Into Darkness, which I would actually say is probably the worst of the 3 kind of new Star Trek movies that came out. I really don't like that one. But he was supposed to be Khan, and he does like a terrible line reading of "I am Khan." Like it was bad. But if you go back and watch the original Wrath of Khan, it's excellent. Like Shatner and Nimoy, like they're incredible. Regardless of if you have any strong feelings towards Shatner, it's fine. He's good in it. And Leonard Nimoy is like forever a legend because of who he played and how he played Spock. And I think the respect that he had for Spock as well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. I think that's a really good pick. And I'm glad that you had that hot take, because I'm sure that probably will anger some people. It's tough because I feel like there's a lot more Star Trek than there is Star Wars. But then, of course, with Star Wars, after the movies, there's also a lot more other stuff. Because if you start talking about, the video games where they're doing the series and that, and books, or this TV specials that they did, like the Wookiee Christmas special, whatever the hell that thing was called. So there is a lot of Star Wars offshoots as well. And I feel like they've been redeeming themselves a little bit with Both The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch have been getting pretty good reviews, so they seem like they're a little bit back on track with Dave Filoni's stuff. But yeah, as a whole, it might seem like there's less Star Wars, but I think you could probably compare them pretty evenly, as there's a lot of both.
I think so, and I think part of the reason, like Star Wars, it became, I feel like kind of George Lucas kind of got his head stuck up his butt a little bit with Star Wars stuff. Like I feel like he just, I don't know, it's kind of like what James Cameron with Avatar. Like I think it just, the technology was just so exciting to them, and then they kind of forgot about story. And I don't know, I George Lucas, even though he created Star Wars and he is the reason that Star Wars is what it is, you know, he also is, I think, a big reason of why it messed up, in my opinion, like why it's not maybe as good as it once was. And I mean, like you said, though, there's a lot of stuff, so it's like, it's difficult when you have such a wide sample size. Like obviously there's going to be a lot of misses, but yeah, like you said, Star Trek has a lot too. And Gene Roddenberry was also like apparently a terrible man as well. But one thing I'll say is both of them were terrible men, but they both had like a really cool vision for what they wanted to do, which I respect a lot. What do you think? Do you have a preference between Star Trek and Star Wars?
I have not seen enough of Star Trek to have an adequate opinion on it. I've never watched any of the TV shows. I haven't seen any of the original movies, really, other than the 3 new movies. And then growing up, my dad was a big, Next Generation fan and stuff like that. I would catch bits and pieces here and there, but like, yeah, I can really only confidently say that I've seen the 3 new movies.
Next Generation is a great series. It's excellent. It's so good. Like I like kind of came across it very randomly as a child because it was on like Saturday mornings. But I loved it. And so whenever I saw Patrick Stewart, everyone was like, oh, it's like Charles Xavier. And I'm like, that's Jean-Luc Picard. I was like, what the hell are you guys all talking about? And then I was shocked when I found somebody who didn't know who Jean-Luc Picard was. And they were like, how would I know that? I'm like, how do you not know who Jean-Luc Picard is? That's insane. If you weighed up the 3 new Star Trek movies versus the 3 new Star Wars movies, which one, I mean, J.J. Abrams has his hand in both. But which one would you prefer, or which one did you prefer?
I only liked the first movie for both of them. I really I hated the second 2 Star Wars movies.
Okay.
And I thought Into Darkness was meh, and I thought Beyond was pretty terrible. So I guess aggregating them out, maybe Star Trek comes out ever so slightly ahead with like a C+ as opposed to like a C- overall.
Oh, interesting. I really like Beyond. Maybe that should be my hot take. I think Beyond's a great movie because I think it's like an episode of Star Trek. Like that's what it kind of feels like, which it's not. I mean, maybe that's also why people didn't like it, because it didn't feel like it moved anything ahead, but it felt like just like an old school Star Trek episode, but like bigger and better production and longer. And I loved it. I really liked Beyond. That's actually probably my favorite of the 3, I would say, is Beyond.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a bit of a hot take itself.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're right. All right. Well, Rachel, I want to thank you so much for sharing all your picks of things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you have a strong opinion on, things you maybe don't have so much of a strong opinion on. But I want to know, where can listeners find you and more of your work?
You can find me on rachelkh.com. You can see some reviews and interviews and features that I write.
Anything new that you just published that you want to plug, or just in general?
There's a few things. They haven't been published yet, though. But probably by the time this episode comes out, then they will have gone out. But yeah, I've got like a review out on POV magazine, which is my first review for them, actually. And that's a documentary magazine, Canadian one. And I looked at For Mad Men Only, which was about Del Close. Do you know who Del Close is? I had no idea who he was before I watched it.
Yes, he is one of the fathers of improv.
Yeah, and it's an incredible documentary. Whenever it comes out, if people are interested in comedy, improv, stand-up, whatever, or if you like John Candy and Bill Murray and Aykroyd, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, like all those guys, watch that documentary whenever it comes out, because it's pretty fascinating. I had no idea about the guy, and he was an interesting person, to say the least.
Awesome. Well, that's excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me again.
Of course. So you can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Contra Zoom Pod, and let us know your thoughts on Rachel's hot takes. Send an email to contrazoompod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music, and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all of our episodes there as well. Thanks for checking us out.